Hey there, Games Apprentice back with another video, and this week I'm going to be giving indie games some love. There are so many great indie games out there, but which 10 do I like the best? Let's find out. I've been looking forward to making this video a while because it's given me a chance to play indie games that I absolutely love once again, and given me a reason to do so. There are so many great indie games out there that I can't possibly cover them all in this video. If you enjoy the video, then I will do some hidden gems and maybe a follow-up to this one. Here are my favourite, ranked from 10 to 1. Into the Breach is a roguelike strategy game that feels like a futuristic Advance Wars cross between something like chess. You've got to command your squad of 3 giant mechs to defend the population against the evil Vek. Each level is made up of an 8x8 grid, and you'll get various mandatory objectives and optional objectives which offer you rewards upon completion. The game's broken down into 4 islands, each consisting of up to 7 levels and a boss. One of the game's unique features is the enemy telegraphs its attacks before you take your turn, making the strategy of the level almost puzzle-like, working out which attacks you can avoid and which enemies need to be destroyed. Your turn isn't just about attacking enemies either. Some of your squad will have different attacks, such as knockbacks, allowing you to push the enemy back and forcing them to shoot their own teammates, or pushing them back and destroying them by bumping into them. If you've been watching my channel a while, you'll know I'm not massive on story in most of my games, and this goes along with that perfectly, keeping the gameplay at the forefront and putting the story in the background with things like citizens getting excited when your troops arrive to save them, or one of your team members abandoning the timeline to be able to carry some progress to your next save. I'm a big handheld gaming fan, and Into the Breach's short levels, lack of story, and roguelike gameplay are perfect for that. It's one of the best indie turn-based strategy games I've ever played, but the best is yet to come. The second of 3 roguelike games on this list, a genre which has thrived in indie gaming, Dead Cells is a roguelike Metroidvania-like game. In it, you need to make your way through each level, with the only requirements being to find the exit. The levels are littered with various enemies, power-ups and weapons. When the game starts out, you'll have 2 of either a shield, a bow and a sword. As you play more, you find new weapons, artifacts and souls that will give you aid to not just this playthrough but in future playthroughs as well. It's a roguelike game, so that means that by the nature, the level designs, the enemy location and loot locations are all slightly different each time, meaning that starting over never feels repetitive, which is a good job, as Dead Cells requires a lot of depth for you to fully understand its mechanics and get some tactics. What makes Dead Cells stand out so much is its combat. Once you've got the hang of the controls and the enemies, you can go from struggling on the early enemies to absolutely bossing through them, even with exactly the same weapons that you had in the beginning. Combine this with the platforming skills, and it's a game that the controls are just so perfectly crafted that you'll only blame yourself when they fail you. Since its release, Dead Cells has had multiple DLC releases to keep it fresh, but even the original is an amazing game, well worthy of your time. Steamworld Dig 2 and Steamworld Dig Quest were both incredibly close to making this list. However, the best of the best is definitely Steamworld Heist. The best way to describe it is as a 2D side-on Valkyrie Chronicles, or to a lesser extent XCOM. You control a team of robot space bandits trying to loot various villainous ships. I guess think Firefly with androids. It's a game full of humour and charm with a cast of robot characters that are all full of personality. The game's main draw though is the strategic combat. You've got to guide your small team to take out all the enemies on each ship and any loot that you find along the way. Each member of the team has their own skill and weapons, and working out how to efficiently down the enemy is always a fun challenge. And like any good indie game worth its soul, can put on different hats. You steal these hats from the enemy purely to make your robots look slightly cooler. Any of your crew getting taken out during the battle has dire consequences, meaning that you can't really afford not to have a well-planned strategy in place. If you like turn-based strategy, this is definitely a game you need to play. Another one that's a sort of Metroidvania, but with more emphasis on action and platforming than anything else. I'm probably going to have to get into some spoiler territory here, so you might want to skip forward about 30 seconds if you're going to play this game. So one of the coolest things about The Messenger is how the game changes not just genre, but also its style. The game starts out as an 8-bit platformer where you need to deliver a message. However, once you've delivered this message, the game turns into a 16-bit Metroidvania. It was already great up until this point, but this makes it even better, and it's a nice surprise if you manage to avoid spoilers. Everything about The Messenger is great. The art style, the music, but what I love so much about it was the jump mechanics and the level design that used them. When you strike an enemy or a certain object, this recharges your jump, giving you a jump in mid-air. The game uses this mechanic to its fullest in clever ways, having you get across seemingly impossibly long gaps by skillfully using flying enemies to your advantage. It's difficult and can be very frustrating having to go back a few screens once you've died, but this frustration and difficulty are required as you get more skilled with repetition, which you'll need to be as the game progresses. Any fan of skilled platforming games should check this one out. Speaking of skilled platforming gaming, Super Meatboy is the very essence of that. The oldest game on my list, famous for being one of the games to really launch indie gaming into the spotlight thanks to the 2012 film Indie Game, the movie, as well as its initial focus on the Xbox Live Arcade upon its release. Super Meatboy is a game where you're going to either love it or hate it, and even if you love it, there's definitely times when you're going to hate it. It's a speedrun platformer that demands perfection in the precisely timed execution of your jumps. You'll die a lot, and when you finish a level, you'll get to see every single one of your playthroughs of that level all at once on one screen. The satisfaction of doing a level that's taken you hundreds of hours is immense, and it's really cool to be able to literally watch your skill get better on the level's end screen. It's the very definition of when practice makes perfect, and when you finally see those end credits roll, you'll feel like you can do anything. You get another game with excellent platforming mechanics. You'll probably start to see a pattern soon, as I absolutely love fast-paced, high-skilled platforming games. Originally, this game started its life on the ill-fated Ouya, which was a nightmare as reliably setting up 4 controllers for it was almost unheard of. Eventually it came to the PlayStation Plus, Steam, Xbox, and then the best version on the Nintendo Switch with an additional 2 players. As a single player game, Towerfall's okay at best, but it's definitely not something you'll remember playing. Multiplayer is the bread and butter of this one, no matter whether it's just one-on-one, or 6-way, or teams, it excels at being a highly competitive game. The mechanics are simple. You can jump, dodge, and shoot arrows. The aim of the game is to eliminate your opponent or opponents. One single arrow will lay them to rest, as will jumping on their head, or they might even get killed by the environment. You only start with 3 arrows, but you can pick them out of the wall or corpses to try and restock them. The most skilled move, however, is that if you time the dodge to perfection, you'll catch arrows being fired at you. It's a fun, frantic multiplayer game that's easy to pick up but difficult to master. It's not only one of the best indie games of all time, but it's one of the best multiplayer games of all time too. Famous for being extremely difficult, Hollow Knight is a pure Metroidvania, and indie or not, it's arguably the best Metroidvania game of all time. You control a weird insect-like knight in an underground world armed with your toothpick-like sword and jumping skills. Hollow Knight's bleak environments are visually stunning, and the art style of the characters and surroundings are amazing, as is the atmosphere it creates throughout. The game doesn't rely on any gimmicks or hooks. Everything it does is stuff that's been done before in most games within this genre, but Hollow Knight does them all perfectly. Enemies are well varied throughout and all have their patterns to recognise for you to beat them. Boss patterns are exceptionally difficult to master, with some taking me hours on hours just to memorise the pattern and execute a perfect display. Like a lot of difficult games, there's times when I just wanted to give up, where I felt like I was wandering around a lot aimlessly, lost, but I wanted to see more of the game and continue to enjoy its perfect mechanics. These times of feeling hopeless though, you're actually learning. When you're completely lost and feel like you're just walking around the same screens over and over, you're actually memorising the map. You're getting better with your manoeuvrability skills and better at defeating enemies. Certainly it's not a game for everyone. Some people just won't have the time or patience for it, but those that do generally hold it in high regard. In some ways this probably seems like a massively different game from everything else on this list, but in other ways it's very much the same. Rocket League is a multiplayer football game where you control a car that can boost and flip as you try and put the ball in the net. Originally an indie game, it was eventually picked up by Epic Games and has since gone free to play. What makes Rocket League similar to other games on this list is the learning curve and high skill level. It's more obvious in this game than most too, as you're not just relying on your memory. Putting a few thousand hours into this game and then playing it locally with a friend who's not played it before and watching as they struggle to even hit the ball reminds you of how far you've come and what it was like when you started out. Having played it on Steam, PlayStation, Switch and Xbox long before it was even free to play, I dread to think how much of my life I've spent playing this game. But it's one of, if not the best sport games ever made. Being able to play as a team of 2 or 3 and to have such an individual impact on the team as well as what you can accomplish on your own, and even more so when you and your teammates have got an undeniable chemistry, makes it feel like a real sport. An amazing game. What a save. My number 2 pick is my number 1 platformer of all time. This may seem a bit of a cheat, as Shovel Knight Treasure Trove is 5 games in one with 4 different platform games, all with different mechanics, and a Smash Brothers-like multiplayer. Treasure Trove, or the standalone Shovel Knight game, either way it goes in the same spot on the list. The extra games in Treasure Trove are fantastic, but I'm purely going to be talking about the OG Blue Knight in this one. Shovel Knight is an 8-bit platform game in which you shockingly control a knight with a shovel. This shovel can be used to dig through walls, to dig through treasure, as a weapon and most importantly as a pogo stick. It takes a pogo stick mechanic from the NES game DuckTales and improves upon it whilst designing levels that are perfect for it. The music and art style for Shovel Knight are my favourite of any 8-bit game. The game incorporates an interesting plot without being too in your face. It really boils down to the gameplay. Again, it's another game that's very challenging and punishes you. You collect loot, but if you die, a lot of that loot is taken away from you and you need to retrieve it from where you died, which is horrible if you died on spikes or in a pit. You can use that loot for upgrades to help you along the way, and the level has save points, but if you're feeling particularly ballsy, you can smash them for extra loot, the ultimate risk reward. Aside from being brilliant, one of the things that makes Shovel Knight so memorable for me was the timing. I originally got it on the Wii U, but never gelled with it, and other games got in the way, which is surprising because the Wii U didn't have many games. Then when the Switch launched, Breath of the Wild, Bomberman, Fast RMX and Shovel Knight were all what I got at launch, or around launch. With not much else coming out for a while, Bomberman sucking, and having played Fast RMX and Zelda to death, I decided to give Shovel Knight another go, and this time around, with little else to distract me, I finally understood what was so good about it. If you're a fan of platformers, you need to play this game and play it through. There are tons of great indie games that didn't make this list, that on a different day might have just squeezed in. I hope you're enjoying the video so far, and if you are, don't forget to click subscribe for more reviews, rankings and hidden gems. Before I get to my number 1 though, I just want to talk about some that didn't quite make it. These are the honourable mentions. handful of games on this list are ones that I wrote reviews for, but usually I already had an idea of what they were. With Slay the Spire, a review code showed up and I'd never heard of it. It was a good week or so before the review embargo was up, so I literally had no idea what I was in for. When I first fired it up, it didn't look great at all. The character design was rubbish, as was the artwork for the cards. If I hadn't have been going away for the weekend and wanted something to play on the go, I probably would have just discarded it as something I didn't want to review and would have passed it on to someone else. Luckily though, I stuck with it and got hooked on an amazing game. Slay the Spire is a card game, a roguelike deck building game. You pick one of initially 3 characters, each with a different skill set, and build a deck of cards around them. Your deck will start out with pretty basic, just standard attacks and block cards, but as you progress, you get the opportunity to add cards to your deck and upgrade existing cards. You can also get artifacts which give you various bonuses and perks. Unlike a lot of roguelikes, you don't get to carry anything over in Slay the Spire. You get the option to speed up the first couple of battles, which are generally just pointless battles anyway, but beyond that, you're starting from scratch. When you initially play this game, it seems impossible that you're going to even beat the first world, never mind the other worlds and bosses. It's not like you can just decide what strategy you're going to have either, because it's a roguelike, meaning it's different each time. The cards and strategy you want to go for might not even come up for grabs on that run. But the more you play it, the better you get at building a deck, knowing how to maximise your profits, and what artifacts will assist you the most. I didn't realise how much I enjoyed deck building games until I played Slay the Spire. If you've never played this one, or the deck building genre, can't recommend this game any more highly, especially now it's on mobile. There you have it, those are my favourite indie games of all time. I'd love to know in the comments what yours are, maybe you've even got some hidden gems for me to check out. As always, thanks for watching, please like the video if you've enjoyed it, and don't forget to click subscribe for more videos like it. I'll catch you next time.